Welcome back to the Gridiron Expert. Yesterday, we broke down 5 big surprise teams from the 2024 season. Today, we're doing the opposite. We're bringing you 5 teams that disappointed big time in 2024. Teams that entered the season with high expectations, maybe hopes of a conference championship, hopes of a college football playoff berth, but fell well short of that. And there were so many teams to choose from. Sad thing, so many teams that failed to live up to their expectations, but we narrowed it down to 5. They were not ranked in any specific order, but let's go ahead and dive into it right now. Maybe the one that most people would have ranked at number 1. Again, these are not in any specific order, but maybe the most disappointing team in all of college football, the most surprisingly bad team in all of college football, was the Florida State Seminoles. It may have been the Florida State Seminoles. We heard it all offseason long, right? Back in 2023, the Seminoles go 13-0. They win the ACC, but they got left out of the college football playoff because Jordan Travis was hurt. So we heard them complain about that all offseason long. They got destroyed by 60 points in the Orange Bowl to Georgia. But it was, we're going to come back. It's a 12-team playoff. We've got the talent. We're out for vengeance for this and that and the other. And all those playoff hopes got ended immediately in week 0. It wasn't even the official start of the season. Week 0, they lose in Ireland to Georgia Tech, and you knew it was going to be a long year for Florida State. But people weren't ready to give up yet. No, they still had time. They could still bounce back. Well, then they came back home. They lost to Boston College at home, 0-2. Definitely done at that point. Then they lost to Memphis at home. Definitely done at that point. It was a horrendous start to the season for the Seminoles. 13-1 in 2023 to 2-10 in 2024. Again, lost to Georgia Tech, Boston College, then Memphis. Their only wins of the season came in a 14-9 win over California and a 41-7 win over Charleston Southern. So 1 conference victory, 1 victory over an FBS opponent. They only had 3 losses to Georgia Tech, Memphis, and Duke by 1 possession. So the Seminoles were getting blown out in every other loss they had. DJ Uyunglele was absolutely terrible. And I don't know if the Seminoles are going to bounce back at 25. I don't think they'll go 2-10 again, but to think that Florida State's going to bounce back and be an elite contender in the ACC and a playoff contender despite it being expanded to 12 teams, probably a bit of a stretch. This is a season that really set this program back quite a bit, and the pressure is certainly going to be on for Mike Norvell to make a lot of big changes and to perform much better after one of the worst seasons that we have ever seen out of Florida State. Another major team to discuss that had high expectations was Oklahoma State. Very similar to Florida State, and it was crazy to see this drop-off from the Cowboys. A team that went 10-4 in 2023 was the Big 12 runner-up and returned so much talent. Alan Bowman was coming back as like a 7th-year quarterback. Ollie Gordon was one of the best backs in 2023. He was coming back in 24. The offensive line was loaded. The wide receivers were loaded. The defense was bad in 23, but surely was going to be better in 2024. It seemed like in a wide-open Big 12 that Oklahoma State could be a team that could challenge for a Big 12 championship spot. And obviously the winner of the conference was going to go to the playoff. So this felt like a year that Mike Gundy, one of the best coaches in the conference, could finally get his team over the hump and get them into the college football playoff. That was not the case. The Cowboys started the year 3-0. They had hopes of making that run, but then lost 9 straight games. 3-0 to 3-9 for Oklahoma State. And you can argue they probably should have been 2-10. They somehow, after getting outgained by nearly 300 yards against Arkansas, found a way to win that game 39-31 in double overtime. So probably should have lost to the Hogs there, but regardless, 9 straight losses to end the year in a season where many thought they could challenge for a Big 12 championship. Only 3 of their losses to Utah, BYU, and Texas Tech were decided by 1 possession. It was their first losing season since 2005, which was the first year under Mike Gundy when he went 4-7. It was just an unbelievably bad year for Oklahoma State, and Ollie Gordon never looked good. The defense never looked good. It was just something that no one saw coming. It led to one of the most disappointing seasons in program history, especially considering the expectations they had coming into the year. Let's go back over to the ACC. I've got 2 more teams in the ACC that I want to discuss. The first is going to be Virginia Tech. This was a team that I really thought could be a dark horse in the conference entering 2024. They ended the year with so much momentum, 7-6, finally got into the postseason under Brent Pry, won that game in dominating fashion over Tulane, and pretty much returned everybody from that team. Returned almost everybody on offense, almost everybody on defense. That included their star quarterback, Kyron Drones, who seemed to start hitting his stride at the end of 2023, this felt like a Virginia Tech team, especially with the schedule they had, that could make a run, that could be dangerous in what felt like a wide open ACC. It really did. That was, again, all gone, kind of like Florida State, all gone after their first game of the year when Virginia Tech lost on the road as a 2-touchdown favorite to Vanderbilt, losing 34-27 in overtime. So right after that, you knew Virginia Tech was done for. Even though that wasn't a conference game, they weren't going to go undefeated in conference play. We knew that. The margin for error was very, very slim the rest of the way. So 11 games left to be played. It was a done deal. And I really feel like it kind of disheartened that Hokie squad quite a bit. They kind of rallied a little bit. Were 3-3 entering their bye week, but ultimately finished 6-7 with a loss to Minnesota in their bowl game. And the thing that I think has to hurt the most for Virginia Tech is that the season could have been so much different if they found a way to close out games. 5 of their 6 regular season losses were decided by one possession, including that 7-point loss to Vanderbilt, a 3-point loss to Rutgers, a 4-point loss to Miami that ended in controversial fashion on that Hail Mary, 7-point overtime loss to Syracuse, a 3-point loss to Duke. So 2 overtime losses, 2 3-point losses, and one that ended in controversial fashion against Miami. Could have been a drastically different year for Virginia Tech. Instead, they ended up with a losing record in a year we really thought they'd break through, and now the pressure is absolutely on for Brent Pry entering 2025. Sticking in the ACC, as we mentioned, NC State. NC State, a massive disappointment. This was supposed to be the year, right? This was supposed to be the year for the Wolfpack. Dave Doeren had his squad. They had an elite quarterback in Grayson McCall. They had tons of hype. They had a favorable schedule. This was the year that NC State, if they were going to break through and win the ACC, this was the year to do it. Or if this was the year they were going to win 9, 10 games, something like that, this was the year to do it. And you knew that this season was going to be bad after week 1 when NC State couldn't put away Western Carolina. Got off to a horrendous start. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, it was a 1-possession game in the fourth quarter before they finally pulled away to win 38-21. The next week, they were blown out 51-10 against Tennessee. Yes, I know Grayson McCall battled injuries throughout the year. I do understand that. But regardless, the Wolfpack going 4-4 entering the bye week. They needed a 35-30 win over North Carolina just to make a bowl game, and they lost that bowl game 26-21 to East Carolina in the Military Bowl. They had 3 one-possession wins. They had 4 one-possession losses. Kind of on opposite ends of the spectrum there. Could have been a much better season for the Wolfpack. Also could have been a much worse season for the Wolfpack. Another season where, again, they entered the year with high expectations. It felt like they had the talent. They've got a good coach in Dave Doeren, but not able to get over the hump. And this year, I think, hurts more than any because they had all the pieces, but it just didn't come together. And then finally, the last team we want to talk about, again, there were so many, and we're going to give some honorable mentions in a second, but how about Kentucky? Thank goodness the Wildcats are doing pretty good in basketball this season because the football season was atrocious for a team that's been pretty consistent under Mark Stoops for the longest time. This was a year where I felt like, Kentucky wasn't going to contend for an SEC title. They weren't going to contend for a playoff spot, but I think that the expectation now for the Wildcats is just to get to a bowl game. Win 7 or 8 games, go to a decent bowl game, and try to win that, right? That's the expectation, and probably should be the expectation for their football program. This year, they were loaded on both sides of the ball, had some solid wide receivers, got a transfer quarterback in Brock Vandegrift, had a lot of expectations there, solid defense per usual. I thought they could win anywhere from 6 to 8 games. Instead, they went 4-8. And it was just a weird year, right? 4-8. They played Georgia within 1 point, only lost by 1 to Georgia. They beat Ole Miss in Oxford. It was, one of those things where it was shown that Kentucky had the talent, that they could win, that they could compete. And then everything just kind of fell apart after that. They started 3-2, went 1-6 down the stretch, blown out in many of those games. This was their first losing season since 2020, although that was a COVID year. So if you don't count that COVID year where they went 5-6, first losing season since 2015, and also saw their 8-year bowl streak come to an end. So again, another year where it was just kind of unfathomable. It was weird to see Kentucky struggling as much, considering they did have quite a bit of talent and obviously one of the most consistent coaches, I would say, in the SEC right now in Mark Stoops. So I would expect the Wildcats to bounce back in 2025, maybe not in a big way, but they certainly do need a solid bounce back year, at least to get back to the postseason after really missing out in 2024. Couple honorable mentions of teams that were very disappointing this last year that we could have talked about today but chose not to. Arizona in year one under Brent Brennan, struggled mightily. Had a great ending in 2023. Jed Fish left. Brent Brennan comes in, and the Wildcats just fell flat on their face despite having quite a bit of talent. Utah, of course, Cam Rising never did anything, kept getting hurt, can't stay healthy, so they struggled mightily in their first year in the Big 12. Liberty went to a New Year's Six Bowl at the end of 2023, was horrendous in the Conference USA, a weak Conference USA in 2024. And then the SEC, a lot of teams we could have talked about. Alabama, Auburn, LSU, and Oklahoma, all entering the year with pretty decent expectations, all falling well short of those expectations. Probably could have done a whole video about how disappointing the bottom half of the SEC was, but to me, Kentucky most likely to be the one that we need to discuss, considering we didn't really expect that much out of Auburn or Oklahoma in their first years in the conference. So there you have it, guys. 5 disappointing teams from 2024. Leave your thoughts down in the comments below. Did we get these teams right? Should we have thrown some of those other teams in there? Or are there teams that we didn't even mention that should be discussed? We want to hear from you. Leave them below. Leave us your thoughts, and let us know if you think these teams can bounce back entering 2025, or if they're set to stay bad for at least a couple more years. We want to know from you. So guys, as always, thank you so much for watching us here at The Gridiron Expert on YouTube. Make sure to continue to like, comment, subscribe, share our videos, and of course, check out everything down in the description below. That includes our website, thegridironexpert.com, home to those expert picks, home to tons of exclusive content to help you get through this season, because while the season may be over, it never ends here at The Gridiron Expert. Take advantage of it, become a member of our GE Nation. And once again, as always, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time right here on The Gridiron Expert.
Yeah.